apples from the tree, cheese, Rice Krispie treats, over the top this time.
And they all want
Oh, it's fresh. Janine, do you need anything? We're good. Oh, we're recording. Oh, great. Okay. Right. Right, your markers and Ryan's markers. Covering all the bases.
Wow. When we come to the section of the agenda that we are going to turn off the recording, can we continue the streaming and the open phone, but just stop recording?
Yeah, but that's not what they're teaching. That's not what EPA said they wanted. EPA and the Works and Independents don't want it streamed either because they can record over there externally.
I'll ask people.
But you can find.
Quick question.
Mics are all over the room, just so you know. Might want to get in on that. Steve, you're not Steve.
Steve Bowden's the mayor, right?
Yeah, was there.
Yeah. So you don't want it.
Well, there's an idea. It's okay, thank you. You know, all the way up until last week, people were getting bounce backs on Steve Bowden and contacting me.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
And so that this is just another message. I will take care of it. Are you? I'm Janine.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Put that on the tour and hopefully it'll be fine.
So we're going to start in a minute. If everyone would grab water, coffee, snacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if anyone did not get an agenda or print out from the last meeting summary, they're over here by the sign-in sheet. Please make sure to sign in.
That means I gotta mute this person's phone.
All right, everybody. I think we're going to get started. And I just want to say thank you so much to Jennifer Harrison for funding us this lovely spot in the world. Commissioner Baker, I think you started this. In fact, you were the one who started this. Thank you. Well, I'm going to give you an answer. We may be in our new home. We'll see if we are kicked out. We'll see how unruly we are. But
Take good care of this place.
I wanted to also thank Emily just once again for keeping us all well fed, which is very good for morale. So generous. So welcome everyone to the September CAG meeting, and I think in a minute we'll do a quick round of introductions. We've got a couple people on the phone, and just a couple reminders of the focus of this month's CAG meeting. We were going to actually have one. We have monthly meetings. We skipped August because we had a particular topic and key staff weren't able to be here, and so the group agreed to skip that particular month. Here we are. The focus tonight is we're going to hear from the agencies, selling events, updates about what's happening to implement the 5-year review and unrelated work. We're going to get some other updates from EPA about what's happening with the technical assistance grant, which is just about to be awarded, I understand, and the community involvement plan update. And I think one of the main way we're going to spend our time tonight is focusing on the potable water injection issue that we've been kicking around, that people have been having a lot of questions about. As we know, we're going to hear an update on the status of the work plan to cease the injection of potable water, but my sense is that CAG members at the last several meetings for a while now have had real questions about what's been happening up to now and what current conditions are, so that you all, CAG members, can understand current conditions and weigh in on solutions going forward in a meaningful, informed way. So I think the focus is not to delve into the past in a way that is somehow disconnected from the future. I think it's about informing where we're going. So I just would that lens in terms of what we're doing. Is there anything else that we need to add to the agenda that anyone realized last minute? I know that you all should have copies of these agendas. If you don't have an agenda or a copy of the meeting summary, raise your hand. Make sure I got one. Okay. So I think before anything else, we could just do a quick go around, like always, and just reminder, if you're a CAG member, what neighborhood you represent, if you're a resident, and otherwise what agency or organization you represent, and otherwise if you're at large, feel free to let us know who you are.
Tom Krause, co-chair of the CAG from Thunderbird Estates.
I'm Bonnie Rader, chair of the CAG from Thunderbird Estates. And we have somebody you can't see right now, but Bill Fryer is on the line from up in Estes Park. He's attending the meeting. He's one of our technical advisors. He'll be brought on board pretty soon. And so he's listening in on the meeting tonight so he can get educated as to what's happening.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Wave, Bill. So we can't hear the folks online, but if they have questions or want to say anything, they can use the chat function or they can text.
He's going to text me if he has a question he wants to ask for now.
Great to see
After
you.
we get our grant, he'll be coming to the meetings. And Dietrich was supposed to call in, but he's a very busy man. He could be out on some derrick testing water, so.
Can you just briefly, since you're saying who they are, just introduce who Dietrich and Bill are?
Okay, Dietrich McGinnis is the owner and president of McGinnis and Associates. He's based in Reno, Nevada. And Bill Fryer is his Colorado consultant that works for him. So we have a local person, local technical person working for us. If there's a major issue that comes up, Dietrich will fly out and he and Bill will work together.
And in October, when the CAG grant has been awarded, there'll be a formal introduction and at least one will be here in person and we'll talk more about all of it.
Okay, my name is Rebecca Thomas. I work for the Environmental Protection Agency as a senior project manager.
Emily Disler, I'm a CAG member, and I'm from Thunderbird Estates.
I'm Paula Smolin, I'm a CAG member in
Richard Rager, Thunderbird Estates, and I'm a gang member also.
And Karen, can we pause 1 second and come back here to?
Oh, I'm Jennifer Harrison, EPA Community Involvement Coordinator.
And I'm Emily's sister, and I'm visiting from Virginia, and I've heard about this, and so I decided I'd come.
And so what's your name? What's your name?
My name is Marilyn.
Welcome.
And Marilyn, she's out here helping me because Tom just had knee surgery Monday and she's here anyway. So she's helping Emily and Tom.
I'm Leah Koykoffs, and I'm a planner at the City of Aurora.
Karen Hancock, City of Aurora.
Don Langley, citizen of Aurora, live in the Sidewalk area.
Keith Homer Shammer with Tri-County Health Department.
Monrovia Wagner.
Les Sims with EPA.
Dave Wilmot, City County member.
Jeff Baker, Arapahoe County Commissioner. Steve Miller, Arapahoe County.
Marty Sobey, community CAG member, Murphy Creek.
Maggie Grasham, community CAG member also from Murphy Creek.
I'm Sarah Tushner, I'm a hydrogeologist with EPA.
Lee Pavonica, State Health Department.
Janine Matterman, State Health Department.
Ryan Nance, I'm here representing Blueprint. And Jennifer Webster will be here.
Great, and Blueprint works with the city and county of Denver. Okay, good. Anyone on the phone who we did not introduce? Anyone know?
We don't know.
Okay,
Oh, we have phone numbers.
so I wanted to say a quick just a quick comment about the agenda before we dive in. We have developed an understanding here at the CAG that we live stream and record the initial part of CAG meetings where there's announcements, updates from the agencies, and then what we do is typically go stop recording to have a more free-flowing, candid, informal discussion on the issues. And so what I would propose tonight is that we continue, and apparently I've consulted with our technical person, Janine Mattheman, and she says that we can keep streaming and keep the phone line open, and we'll just stop the recording when we get to the discussion of potable water injection, which I believe is going to be the participatory discussion part of this meeting. So does anyone have any concerns with that, or can we just make that work? Yes.
Can you explain why why not recorded?
You know, a couple of meetings ago, and we had a discussion about wanting to make sure that people were as candid as they could be in sharing and in talking with each other, and that it might increase the candor for people to not feel that they're being recorded if there's some concern of someone coming back and saying, oh, but you said X at this meeting 6 months ago. So that was the idea. So we're obviously keeping meeting summaries, which I send to all of you for your review and hopefully edits. So if I captured anything wrong that you didn't say, or if I missed something important, that should go in there. But aside from meeting summaries, we've agreed to not voice record it. Does that answer the question, Dave? Okay. Okay, any other housekeeping? The bathrooms, by the way, are out that door and down the hall to the right. And I think that's all that I've got in terms of housekeeping. I think at this point, I would love to just turn to EPA, and I think this is Les and Rebecca and Jennifer to walk us through some updates. I think you might have handouts on this.
Yes.
Okay.
I can get started, Ryan.
Please.
Sorry.
Yes. And are this, is that games, was that made available?
It's over on the table.
Okay.
Yeah, so those materials over here on the table, hopefully we grab them, and pass them around. We may not have the documents over here.
Okay, so this is the one thing that we're going to be going through. But does everyone have this chart that Les prepared? Okay, great. If you need it, raise your hand. I'll just hand it to you.
Oh,
I'm just gonna pass it.
So before we get to EPA's quick update, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First, EPA and CDPHE both are delighted that we have a CAG advisor participating, at least by phone tonight. I think we all share a little bit of frustration that the CAG grant wasn't awarded in time to allow the advisor to be here tonight. But it looks like that CAG grant will be awarded sometime in October, and the hope and plan is to be able to have the CAG advisors here at the next CAG meeting in October. So I think it can only help the project. And Bill, I know you can't talk back because you're on mute there, but we're looking forward to meeting you. I'm looking forward to meeting you. I know you already know Les and Lee, but look forward to working with you as we move forward. Talked to Bonnie and Tom, the CAG co-chairs, a little bit before the official meeting started this evening, and if the CAG and CAG advisors are interested, EPA and the state would certainly like to offer some sort of meeting to the CAG advisors, anybody else that wants to attend, just to provide a little bit of background and bring everybody up to speed to where we are right now. So happy to do that if you like, or we can keep it far more informal than that too. As for the rest of the evening, we've come prepared to provide a few quick updates, and I know that we want to keep them quick because the main event for the evening's discussion will be the potable water injection cessation work plan. And I know that EPA and CDPHE have reviewed a couple of versions of this draft work plan. We hope to be able to share it with the CAG and the CAG advisors next week and offer you all a couple of weeks to review the work plan. If you feel like you need a couple of weeks, maybe tonight's conversation will be good enough. But I think it's a good plan, good idea. EPA and the state are on the same page with it, and I think we're all looking forward to that conversation. I also want to thank the CAG for the questions that they provided on that topic that we'll get to later this evening as well. And I know we also have a meeting planned for early October, a working group meeting to go over the Deanna Crumlane memo, statistical analyses of past data. So looking forward to that. And the only other introductory remark I wanted to make was just an indication of the level of effort and resources that the EPA and the state are putting towards this project. To that end, Les and I recently brought on a new human health risk assessor, Dr. David Berry, and he will be helping us as we move forward to consider what health risks, if any, might be posed by the project. As you know, that's one of the outstanding questions from the 5-year review. So keep that in mind as we consider future topics for CAG meetings. And Sarah, she introduced herself earlier. Maybe you already know Sarah, our hydrologist, is also taking advantage of an EPA National Groundwater Forum to toss a few ideas around as we try to understand better the groundwater regime at the landfill. So I think that's another great resource for us. And Les has reached out to our environmental response team, which is another part of EPA, to get some groundwater modeling expertise as we move forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Les for some quick updates, and then I think you can move into the in-depth conversation on the total water injection work.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, everyone. I modified the update list just a little bit. I hope Ryan doesn't mind. I thought it was important, just as we're talking, just general information to see how it's applicable to the technical work that's being done, and also to take a look at the status and those opportunities where we've given a CAG a chance to review documents and what the future holds for that process. So not in any particular order here, but what I tried to do is try to mimic the master schedule that they will be presenting after I finish up. And you'll see that there's a lot more items on Dave's master schedule that are located on the table, because on the 5-year review, a lot of these are tied together, whereas the master schedule breaks them out in the schedule to show exactly what the progress on each task is.
And Les, the master schedule is this large sheet?
Yeah, the master is the large 11 by 7, 11 by 14 that many of us may have to put our glasses on to read. This is actually probably about a 4 or 5 pager, and we tried to whittle it down just to the primary task. We cut out a lot of the sub-tasks. I think it would be it's self-explanatory in terms of what the major tasks are. So, well, just the schedule. Would you not think? Okay. Would you not? Okay. So, real quickly, because I know we're running behind time, so I'd like to go.
We're perfectly on time.
We are?
You are perfectly on time.
Oh, super. I thought we were running behind. In that case. No. So, the first item, the private well sampling evaluation. In the 5-year review, EPA found a deficiency in terms of wells being located within the plume, as well as immediately adjacent to the plume. And this task was put forward to address that issue. The WSDs have responded to EPA and CDPHE comments regarding this effort. And where we're at now is the last submittal consolidated comments were provided to the WSDs last week. And in talking with Tim Shangwell, we anticipated a response sometime soon. I put by the 28th, it could be sooner. And as soon as we get that final, we plan to share that with the CAG after the health department and EPA have a chance to take a look at, do a final draft review.
Les, there's a quick question over here.
Yeah, sure.
And saying that you're talking about the wells located within or immediately adjacent to the plume. My question is, are you thinking about the area between Sand Creek and Mississippi Avenue as also being an area that may be contaminated and evaluating the wells in that area?
This particular item was focused on when we reviewed the site documents. It was pretty obvious that there were some wells directly in the footprint of the plume that we needed data on. And also there were maybe 1 or 2 wells located just outside of that plume. This does not represent the work that we're looking at farther down near the leading edge of the plume near Mississippi. This was a particular line item that we saw that there were at least 4 wells located in this particular area and wells located adjacent to that area of the plume.
Can I ask why you're not taking into account further north of Mississippi and Mississippi to Sand Creek?
We are, but if you go back and look at the recommendations, the issues and recommendations of the 5-year review, you'll see at each line item for a particular deficiency that we identified. And what the WFDs are attempting to do is address each line item. That's part of what you're referencing is part of further delineation of that plume as a whole and any impacts down gradient or within in close proximity to the plume. So that's another effort, and that's something that we're looking at as well.
And I'm gonna keep track of some questions that we don't fully get to. Do you want me to, Tom, put that on the list of just sort of?
Yes.
Okay, keep going, I'm gonna capture it.
I think it's probably a pretty good segue to the next update. Right? I know the next update is a lot of different activities, some of which we're not all the way through yet, but it gets to that question about further delineation of that.
Right, and in response to your question, Tom, looking at the next item where we see work plans and technical memos for north end characterization. There is a number of items that are rolled into that, including updating the groundwater plume map, updating the conceptual site model, conducting capture zone analysis, optimization of the remedial systems, and evaluating the need for additional wells that you had indicated, including deep wells. The status on those are, again, these are work plans that are currently being discussed. We're looking at several considerations and the best approach to addressing these issues of the delineation and characterization. We have an effort underway for our three-dimensional visualization model that we're conducting even as we speak. The effort is scheduled to be completed tentatively for the late October, early November. That's a synoptic sampling that we discussed earlier. And is there anyone, when I say synoptic sampling, is that a term that people aren't familiar with and need?
Maybe just a quick explanation in lay
Yeah, when we say
terms.
synoptic sampling, what we were referring to is being able to conduct sampling relatively at the same time. We have sampling, we have a lot of data for the site going back many, many years, but we don't have sampling that has been conducted throughout the study area that we're focusing on at one time. And obviously there's an advantage to having the sampling done in one time versus trying to compare 2018 sampling data with 2015 or 2006. So So when we say sampling, synoptic sampling, we're just saying contemporaneous sampling, trying to capture as much as we can within that same time frame. And in addition to that, we're looking at groundwater model and capture zone analysis, and those again are in the planning stage.
So if you are doing, since you are doing that, and you're expanding all this, are you taking into account the possibility that there may be leachate between Murphy Creek and Sand Creek in making your decisions? And not just assuming, which is the basis assumption is that the leachate is only moving down Murphy Creek. And you're not taking, in the past, conceptual model didn't take into account that there were sand lenses that could be going east or going west. And so are all those things that you're talking about in making this new evaluation of the site?
That's a great question, and my response to that is that we're making no assumptions. There's a lot of uncertainty that we're trying to address. That's what the sampling effort is, to answer questions, to build data gaps. So.
I might add a little bit to that, Les, if you don't mind, and I know these are supposed to be quick updates, but I can't help myself, right? I think one of the things that the team is very interested in doing right now, and when I say the team, I include the WSPs in this conversation, is developing a revised conceptual site model. We have a conceptual site model, which I'm sure you're familiar with from 2001, and it's a one-page cartoon, and it really doesn't provide very much information, right? So I think we're looking forward to revising that conceptual site model. It will include the results of the synoptic sampling Les was just talking about, which is going to feed the 3D visualization model. We may be able to use the groundwater modeling that the WSDs have proposed to beef up that conceptual site model. And I think that CSM will help us identify the data gaps and help inform where samples should be collected, where data should be collected, to better understand the site. So I think that'll be a really key piece in being able to move forward on some of these other questions. Lee, do you have anything to add to that? I know you're a big fan of the CSM.
I am a big fan. Yeah, we're starting the process, so. I don't know how much you want me to elaborate.
That's good. As long as you're a big fan and we're starting the process. So it doesn't, we can't really answer the question tonight, but at least we've got a path forward.
I have a question, and sorry if it's just my lack of knowledge, but I understand what you're talking about getting a lot of data now that's current. And if I'm understanding it right, you're going to do like a brand new sort of model. That's what I'm hearing in my head. And although that's great, I have to wonder, why don't we compare it to older to see what changes have been made?
It's more current current data versus new data and starting over. The three-dimensional visualization is a new effort, and we require current data to really be able to rely on the information that is being provided. As you can imagine, if we put in 2006 data and try to extrapolate current conditions, that would be one avenue, but would be better if we have current data to be able to assess versus data that's 10 years old and 12 years old.
And I get that, but can you not use the older data to do another model and then compare it to? And does that do anything for it?
Initially, just to start up the 3DVA is what we're referring to, three-dimensional visualization of short 3DVA. We did just that. We took 2006 data, we looked at that. We took 2015 data, and we looked at that as well. More of a palette to see if the system would be of any value. and we determined it would be of great value in terms of trying to accomplish some of the tasks that we've laid out as deficiencies in the 5-year review. So yes, we can certainly compare data, but we want to compare data with something that's current, that we know the conditions as they are now, versus extrapolating data from past events.
Sonia.
So,
Did you, oh, sorry, go ahead, Les, do you want to finish that
did
thought?
that answer your question?
No.
Does anyone else have anything to add? I mean, just in terms of the, yeah, Dave.
Maybe just timeline. So what's, Les just talked about, the outside and north end characterization, which groups together a bunch of a number of the 5-year review papers. Those are now the deadline for completion of all that stuff. We kicked out to the summer of because there is so much work that needs to be done in that regard that the milestones.
And so just going, before we move on from Margie's question, does anyone else have any, especially from the agencies or WSD's, thoughts about the benefits in addition to what Les said about comparing past and current to, is that useful? Does it give us anything? Is that something that can be done other than in that example that I just
I think we will be using historic data, not just physical, but chemical data, to help us assess the freight transport issues that we need to evaluate and understand the problems. In my opinion, we will pay that. But that's not a big discussion we want to get into today. So my only other point was I just want to make sure we capture Tom's question up here specifically. That the word north in this case, I think, means between Mississippi and Sand Creek.
Thank you.
And
So,
then-
oh,
And then if we want to capture Marty's question, if that didn't play, maybe that was my response, but I don't know.
Well, that's what I would have expected, is that, sure, you can create a model from current data, of course, why wouldn't you?
Yes,
But then why wouldn't you compare it?
right.
But
I see
historically.
no reason not to. It's certainly the state's intent to do that, so.
And that is part of the overall process. You want to see how things are moving and, the behaviors specifically, how things are changing. So most certainly you want to look at that current data and see what's changed over the course of the last 5 years or even 1 year.
And
That's part of the big picture.
and that was your question. Sonia, and then I want to, if there are questions that merit longer responses, I'm going to capture them and then have us move along, but please go ahead as I'd like to clarify.
I understood Tom's question, compressing it to be, if the current round of sampling determines that the levels of dioxin are concerning in that northern part of the plume, will the current round of agreements with the WSDs necessarily and specifically include that portion of the plume or not? I didn't quite understand your answer.
I don't even think I attempted to answer that portion.
Did I misunderstand your question, Tom?
But
Yeah,
I can respond to
that was part of it, but I understand that we're looking at the conceptual model and so on. I was just asking, that in looking at the conceptual model, we would include the north end all the way to Sand Creek. And I think that the answer was yes, we will be looking at that. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll go wherever the data pushes us to go. We will follow the data.
Well, in response to the other question.
Yeah.
EPA is charged with protection of human health and the environment. So there's some indication the remedy is not protected, except for the things that should be.
Yeah, the record of decision is pretty clear. If there is an instance where we identify that there is a risk, if we identify even if there are performance standards, if there are exceedances of the performance standards for any particular chemical, is laid out in the ROD, as well as the groundwater monitoring plan, that some action will be taken.
So Molly has a question, and I just want to remind us that we probably should move on if we want to get to
It's a
the,
quick one.
please.
On the status of these things, are these happening concurrently, the 3D visualization and the capture zone analysis, is that all happening at the same time?
We're working on, as Lee would say, we have a lot of balls in the air. You know, we're working on a lot of things simultaneously, but we're still focusing on those priority issues. And Dave has a master schedule, and I believe everyone should have a
It's this
schedule,
big one.
large print with the small, the large, printout with the small print. That actually goes on the schedule, that shows where we're at on those different items, in terms of schedule, and, you know, what we anticipate accomplishing those tasks, or at least completing the work.
And we'll do my best. Thank you.
We're gonna have these online too, so you'll be able to zoom in.
Great.
Yes. Okay, so can we move on? Is it, oh, Richard?
Got a quick one. So if I understand it correctly, if we test farther past going on down, you find there is no exceeds in the standards, any chemical, then you stop.
Well, it's not just a yes/no question. There's a whole lot of things
Yeah.
that we have to take in consideration. But I hesitate to respond to a hypothetical situation because, you know, we can say what if all night. But what we were trying to do is a systematic, methodological, help me out here.
We all know exactly what
Scientific
you're talking about.
To actually track, to see where we have that point where we can, with some level of confidence, say, this is the boundary of the thing. This is
Because I was
the
just
state of the flow.
trying to understand your answer about what the law and if it's been
It actually, it's on the stand.
yeah, that's what I heard you say.
If it was that, it would be consistent.
But then the rod doesn't.
Right, and again, there's a whole lot of variables that play into that, but the bottom line is if there's attribution to the site, if there's a connection to the Lowry landfill site, the work element is required to take some action if it's out of compliance or these fetuses that are damaged. So, maybe back.
Okay, you had an add-on.
I just want to bring up the fact that at the last CAG meeting, the CAG made the mention that where it says adjacent to the plume of 1,4-dioxane, are we going to be testing for everything in the leachate plume, or are you just testing for 1,4-dioxane?
In the current analytical that we're doing now,
Yes.
we have primarily 1,4-dioxane, but we have a percentage of that where we're running for all chemicals, what we call full suite analysis.
Okay, that's good. Is the health department doing any split sampling or observing or anything?
No.
So basically, when you give us the first sample results, it will include other elements that might be in the leachate. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is part of the sampling effort.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
We're in for the water cessation. So this responds to the 5-year review issue, pretty straightforward.
And you know, if it makes sense, Les, we could wait and do this to sort of kick off the discussion about potable water cessation, which we're gonna have in a minute. If you want to skip that, we'll come right back to it.
You want, okay.
Yeah.
The groundwater monitoring plan update, that responds to the 5-year review issue pertaining to updating the current state performance standards, adding 1,4-dioxane to the groundwater monitoring plan, and also reevaluating and updating the performance standard for iron. Those updates have been completed, and they are part of the record. This was an update, not so much as a work plan. It just pretty much requires them to update the groundwater monitoring plan to reflect the most current state performance standards and include 1,4-dioxane, which is an emerging contaminant and was not part of the original regular decision. The POTW pipeline work plan, that was actually the first technical memorandum that we shared with the CAG, and that was in response to EPA's 5-year review recommendation that the capacity of the water treatment plant be updated. And that, again, was approved in July, and work is currently underway on the, I'm talking to Tim, or,
We're moving through.
okay. And that is planned for completion, I believe, by the end of this year. And again, that document was shared with the CAG, and they provided comments to that in July. The landfill gas technical memorandum, again, that was just an update document to reevaluate the landfill gas performance standards, just to bring them up to date. And that was approved in July, and that is part of the site record as well. And that's pretty much where we're at. The statistical model audit, we're probably going to talk a little bit about that. So, but just since we're here, just to let folks know what that's all about. It's really not a 5-year review recommendation. It's related to the audit that was performed by our statistician on the statistical model that's used to make groundwater decisions, groundwater compliance decisions. That model was evaluated in, I think it was 2013 now, and completed in 2014. And the results of that evaluation was that EPA determined that the model that was being used needed to be updated to EPA's guidance for statistical modeling for medium size. That was, again, was completed in 2014. Deanna Crumley is our statistician who performed that evaluation, and she also performed the audit just recently to ensure that our recommendations of updating that model was in place, and to look at the data associated with the model, determined that it was working as designed. And that was completed in July. And it also included responses to questions that were submitted by the community regarding the statistical analysis process. And it's my understanding that there's going to be a teleconference call in October with the statistician to address.
Yeah, do you want me to jump in?
Oh, yeah, please.
Les, so we are planning October 2nd, we're going to be hosting a meeting. It will be by conference call or in person. It will occur at EPA's conference center in downtown Denver for those of you who are willing to make the trip. It's really going to be an opportunity to ask questions and hear directly from the statistician who developed that technical memo. So for anybody who's interested in that, I will be sending out an agenda probably next week with more details about the where and all that. But I do have a whole date maybe. So I think I have a save date. Maybe I need to send it out to the CAG. I will be getting that out next week on that meeting. But yeah, it's 2:00 on October 2nd.
Okay. So the email will go to the CAG.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so that takes us back to portable water.
Well, I think, but we were gonna have a quick update about the community involvement plan.
Okay, I just have a couple other things I'll mention really quick. So the 5-year review, we did a fact sheet, which I brought copies of, and also sent it out in an email with a link, but just thought you might want to have access to some hard copies. It was really meant just to be a summary for the general public about the 5-year review. There's really nothing different we already know about. the 5-year review. I've got your copies. And then we are beginning the process of developing a community involvement plan. It's called Community Involvement Plan Update. This is something that we typically do every 5 years at surplus Superfund sites. And basically, it's just, we conduct interviews, we look at the demographics of the community, the state and EPA do it in partnership. And the goal is really just that, to get a plan together or update the plan on how we involve the community with regard to the site. So we're going to be reaching out with contractor support to set up those interviews beginning in October. I usually like to do those phone calls myself to set up the interviews, but craziness. So we got some help doing it. So if you get a call from somebody, you know who they are, it's legit. And Janine and I will be meeting with you. And so if you really want to be interviewed, then feel free to reach out to me. But obviously, everybody of interest in speaking with, the meetings are generally about an hour long, and let's do in person if at all possible. And then, we have to talk about October 2nd. That's all I had. Questions?
Next, how are you going to decide who you're going to contact about this meeting?
Great question. So typically the way it works for the site is our goal is to try and reach out to people who we think best represent the site, the community. So we're going to be asking you if you have recommendations on who we should interview, and I should add that to my question tonight. So not only should you let me know if you want to be interviewed, if there's somebody you think should be interviewed, then please email that to me. I think you all know how to get a hold of me. But yeah, just let me know, because that's really important to hear from citizens. We want to hear from business. We want to hear from educators, the whole gamut. Janine, is there anything you would add to how we decide?
One thing, we also try to include a certain fraction of them that are pure random, that have no connection to anything at all.
Yeah.
And that's usually community members.
So do you advertise on social media, or is that too far reaching?
Well, EPA doesn't have great social media. It's pretty well controlled out of Washington these days.
You don't have to be the ones to do it.
But I welcome your ideas. If you want to do social media, some people, please let me know. Anything you say.
We don't really advertise. We bring it to the CAG's attention because you're already interested, and we know that. And so that we want to open the door to you first. After that, we get to do the hard work and find the balance. We have the goal of a community involvement plan set of interviews is to get to a point where we're getting repeat answers. That's when we know that we have adequately sampled the community. So it's pretty subjective.
And these are repeat answers to questions like,
how do you like to be communicated with? Where do you like to go to meetings? Where would you likely attend a meeting? What time of day is a great time to have a meeting?
Well, and do you have concerns about the site?
Well, absolutely, but I mean, if you think communications, the goal here, the ultimate goal is to not work in a vacuum, and where we say, okay, this looks like the best way to communicate with these communities, where we actually ask in the communities, how do you like to be communicated with?
Jackson?
You mentioned there are random people you were contacting owners. There's kind of an intermediate group, for example, who are extremely active in the city of Aurora, but who may not know very much at all about the Lowry landfill. We talk to them, see how much they know or don't.
We definitely want to talk to anybody. Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to give you some names of people, some people, different ends of the political spectrum, who are very active for stuff. So that to find out what they know or don't know.
Thank you. And with regard to the citizens of the CAG, citizen members, sometimes I've seen a group interview, if that's of interest, and if people would rather that we just do a subset, that's fine too, but I'll look to you guys to recommend how you best prefer to provide answers to our questions. And it can also be done on paper or electronically.
I just had one question about, do you, on your list, I know you have the CAG, but do you have the elected officials for the affected community?
That's part of our update, we'll be making sure that all those contacts are updated. But obviously, if you have somebody that you don't think is currently on the list, then by all means send them out.
Yeah, as long as you have the list, it's on our website, who the mayor and council are, and I'm sure the county commissioners and other.
Yes,
Any
elected
other-
officials are part of the people voting.
Last question for you, Jennifer, maybe before you're done, is that, do you have anything to say about the technical assistance grant award and when to expect that and what it means?
Yeah, I was thinking we talk about this at the very end of the meeting.
Oh,
Kind of for the next meeting, because it kind of ties in with that, but yeah, I mean, obviously, we are just as concerned and frustrated that the technical assistance grant was not awarded, and we are, CCA is, my group is working very hard to try to push it through as quickly as possible. So I think the goal is to have some kind of a meeting, or at least an update, possibly the next CAG meeting, if that's of interest, about kind of how that all works, so we can talk about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Les and Rebecca and Jennifer and Janine. So I think where we want to spend the bulk of the rest of the evening is on potable water cessation. And my sense is that, so as everyone, as you all remember, there have been a number of questions that have come up at many meetings to understand about the history and context and reasons for and impacts of potable water injection. And we've had some presentations about this, so I think, people have heard about it, it's not new, but like any super technical concept that has, a lot of, that causes concerns, I think we're just peeling back the layers. So I think the format for tonight's discussion is not to have a formal presentation. The CAG has provided, so at the last meeting we had, you all remember that you suggested, let's have a conversation about potable water to understand a bit more about the history and how we are where we are now. And then the CAG agreed to supply some questions to give a little more contour so that the agencies and Southern Defense could bring relevant information. The CAG did that, provided a bunch of questions. My sense that, so I know that the agencies and Southern Defense have looked at those questions and have some thoughts and responses. My suggestion is that rather than starting with the questions, that we get to the questions, but we start with sort of the story of why potable water injection became part of the picture. What was the expectation, sort of what caused it to shift, and where are we now? Because I think that might help inform the discussion a bit. So I don't know if EPA would be willing to start there, and then I think others should chime in, and when people have questions, just raise your hand, and then ultimately, we'll try to make sure that we get to those questions that were submitted by the CAG as much as possible. I think we could spend a whole week, if we wanted to, on the details, so we're gonna have to strike the balance between going into enough detail, but not getting lost. So I'll try to keep us moving along. So I think, yeah, Marky.
So we are a little bit behind schedule now.
Yeah.
So my only comment would be, I'd love to hear some background, but as you're saying, we'd like to have it consolidated or compressed so that we do have time.
Good. And also, I think the background is not divorced from the questions. Like the questions in my recollection started with, why did this start? When? What was the point? What have been some of the ramifications? What are the alternatives? So I hope that the broad brush can start to get at those questions, just from the big picture. So,
Well, I think it's a great lead-in to the first question in particular, maybe even the first three questions. The project team, I'd like to thank the CAG for providing the questions in advance, because it really helped us think about how to frame the discussion tonight. And Lee and Sarah and Dave and Les and I and Jennifer spent a good amount of time thinking about responses to these questions, so I think that would be great. I think Sarah's prepared to provide a short background with the framework to get us right into responses to the first few questions, and Dave will chime in.
and yeah, and we can say what the questions are as we go along, but let's start broad and then we'll make sure that we talk about what the questions are.
So I think I'm just gonna do this verbally. We don't have our phone forms.
Oh, and I think this is the point where we're gonna stop recording and just have discussion. Thank you. Thanks. Right.
Okay, well, hopefully you guys can picture the landfill site with the little triangle up at the top, the north boundary barrier